Hello, and this is my Maths Teacher Hub 2025 Best Guess Predicted Paper 2F. Question number 1. Write down a square number between 40 and 80. So we're looking for a square number. Now you can use your calculator for this, but 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared. I know that 6 squared is 36, 7 squared, 49, 8 squared, 64, and 9 squared is 81. So basically you can put either of those two answers because they're both between 40 and 80. So I'm going to go for 49. Question number 2. Work out 30% of 180. Loads of different ways to do percentages, but on a calculated paper I'm going to do 0.3 multiplied by 180, which is 54. Question number 3, it says Helen works for 6 hours and she is paid £93. How much is Helen paid per hour? So we're going to do a share, which is a divide, so £93 divided by 6. Now some of you might be thinking I could probably do that in my head, but this is where you get marks for a GCSE. Writing things that you type into your calculator down. So we've got £15 and 50p. Remember, it's £15.50, so try and make sure it's money. Question number 4, we've got write the following numbers in order of size. Start with the smallest. The best thing to do here is to turn them all into either decimals or percentages, in my opinion. I'm going to turn them into decimals. So 9/14, I'll use the calculator for that, which is 0.6428. That one is 0.68. We've got 5/8. That is 0.625. Then we've got 0.604 and obviously 0.62. So we're looking for which one is the smallest out of those values. We've got 0.6, 0.6, 0.6, 0.6 and 0.6. So we're looking to the third digit. 0.64, 0.68, 0.62, 0.60, 0.62. So I actually think that's the first one. So 0.604. And then I think it was either these two because they're 0.62 and 0.62. That would be 0.620. So I think we're going to go for that one next, 62%. And then we're going to do 5/8. And then we have now got between 0.64 and 0.68. The 9/14 would be next, and 0.68 should be last. Question number 5. Benedict needs to buy some items for his art studio. Benedict needs to buy 20 paintbrushes, 12 paints, 6 easels and 10 paint palettes. Benedict has £200. Does he have enough to buy the equipment he needs? So 20 paintbrushes, well, they come in packs of 4. So if I multiply that by 5, so £6 times by 5 will give me £30. These are £3.50 each, and I need 12 of them. So I'm going to do £3.50 times by 12. Again, I am going to be writing that down. So that's £42. 6 easels, and you get 3 for 50 quid. So I need 2 lots of that will get me 6 easels. That'll be £100. And you get 2 paint palettes for a £5, and I need 10 of them. So I'm going to times that by 5 as well. So that should be £25. Okay, if I add them all up together, again on the calculator, I've got 30 plus 42 plus 100 plus 25. That is £197. Does he have enough to buy the equipment? Yes, he does. I'm usually writing some sort of coherent sentence here, so yes, he does. He has £3 change. There we go, there's question number 5. Question number 6, we've got Annie and Catherine went for a hike. Okay, so Annie and Catherine went for a hike. The hike lasted 3 3/4 hours. They finished the hike at 17:20. At what time did they start the hike? So we know that 3 3/4 is 3 hours and 45 minutes. So if I have like a number line, and let's say this is 17:20, if I go back 20 minutes, that'll be 17. So if I kind of take 20 minutes off that left, I'm now left with 25 minutes. Then I'll go back to 3 hours, so 17, that'll give me 16 or 4 o'clock. And we've got 15, which is 3 o'clock, and then we'll go back 1 other hour, which will be 14 or 2 o'clock. So I've now done the 3 hours, and I've got to go back 25 minutes from there. So 25 minutes, that's before 2 o'clock, that should be 1:35. So I'm going to do 13:35. So either 13:35, or I suppose you could put 1:35. But if you are doing this, you're going to have to put PM. It's in my best interest to usually use 24-hour clocks. Right, question 7. Molly is going to select a sandwich and a piece of fruit for lunch. She has the choice of these sandwiches and fruit. So if I was doing the actual GCSE, I'd probably write the words out, but I'm going to write ham and orange, as in H and O, ham and banana, ham and apple. Then you've got cheese and orange, cheese and banana, cheese and apple, egg and orange, egg and banana, egg and apple, and then the last one would be tuna and orange. There we go. So you should have ended up with 12 different combinations. Question number 8. An aeroplane travels at an average speed of 900 kilometers per hour. A flight duration is 2.5 hours. Work out the distance the aeroplane travels. Okay, we all know that speed equals distance divided by time. I use the triangles. So we have got average speed of 900, so 900, and work out the distance. So we're going to try and find the distance, and it also tells me the time is 2.5 hours. I'm going to use the 2.5 hour fraction button on my calculator. You could use 2.5, but I'm going to do 900 times by 2 and 1/2. That should give me 2,250 kilometers. Right, got some quick fire questions. Simplify k to the power of 3 multiplied by k to the power of 5. It's a multiplication, so we are going to add the powers, so k to the power of 8. Simplify r to the power of 0. Everyone should now know that r to the power of 0, or anything to the power of 0, is always 1. And w10 to the divided by w to the minus 2. We are going to subtract those powers, but remember 10 take away minus 2 becomes 10 plus 2. Therefore, we're actually going to write w to the power of 12. Right, question number 10. Kennedy wants to invest £8,000 for 3 years in a bank. I've got 2 possible options. So what I'm going to do is probably split my page down the middle here, just so I can keep my working out for this one and working out for this one separate, so it makes it easier for the examiner. So we're going to do 3% compound interest each year, which should be 8,000 times by 1.03, which is basically what 103% each year would look like. And we're going to use to the power of 3. That one's nice and easy. Only one calculation needed. So we'll do 8,000 times by 1.03 to the power of 3, or the cube button. So we should end up with £8,741.816. If he goes with deposit bank. Balance bank, we are going to have a 4.2% interest first year, and then a 1.3% compound interest for each year. So I'm going to do it for another 2 years after that. So starting again with £8,000, but this time we're going to have 1.042 for 1 year. And then I'm going to times that by 1.013 for a further 2 years. So I should end up with 8,000 times by 1.042 times by 1.013 twice. I'm going to end up with 8554.1447. So I think it's fairly obvious. If I was going to put my money in the bank, or Kennedy was going to put his money in, deposit bank will give Kennedy the best value. There we go. Question number 11. Here are the first 4 terms of an arithmetic sequence. Any sequence that you see, you should always be thinking, what is going on? So that's add 3. That is also add 3 and add 3. Write down the nth term of this. Well, any sequence going up in 3s is a 3 times table. And then to find the other piece of information, you need to go backwards 3. So minus 3 from there would actually give me 13. This number here would live there, positive 13. So 3n plus 13. Here is another sequence. Work out the difference between the 3rd number in this sequence and the 8th number in this sequence. Well, if I put the 3rd number in, I would basically put 3 there. So it will be 10 take away 3 squared, which should give me 9, which is 1. If I put the 8th number in this sequence, that would be 10 take away 8 squared, which would be 10 take away 64. So 10 take away 64 gives you minus 54. So the 3rd term would be 1 and the 8th term would be minus 54. So work out the difference between those two values. The answer is 55. There is a gap of 55 between those two numbers. Number 12, make x the subject. Loads of different ways to do this. I'm going to do m take away n square rooted equals x. There we go. 13, we have got a parallelogram. So a couple of things we need to know about parallelograms. We've got those two angles should add up to 180. Those bottom 2 angles should add up to 180. Those 2 angles should add up to 180. All 4 angles should add up to 360. Opposite angles are the same. So that one is the same as this. This is the same as this one. So first thing I'm looking for here is those 2 angles are the same as each other. And if 2 things are the same as each other, you can write them with an equal sign in between them. So we've got 80 minus x. Now we've got a little bit of a solve to do. I am going to first of all eliminate this minus x by adding x. That should now give me 4x minus 10 equals 80. Then I'm going to eliminate this minus 10 by adding 10. That's now going to give me 4x equals 90. Okay, then 2x will be equal to 45, and 1x should be equal to half of 45, which is 22.5 degrees. Right, okay, well if x is 22.5 degrees, if I now figure out one of these corners, so I'll figure this one out probably, because that'll be 80 take away 22.5. That should give me 57.5 degrees. I now know that these two add up to 180, so I'm going to do 180 take away 57.5. I think angle Y is 122 degrees, or 122.5 degrees. Okay. So, number 14. Harrison spends £50 on baking ingredients. Harrison makes 80 brownies to sell at the local farmer's market. To sell at the farmer's market, Harrison has to pay £25 for a pitch, which is basically like a stall. He sells 4/5 of the brownies for £2.50. The rest he sold for £1 each. All brownies are sold. Work out the percentage profit. Okay, well, let's figure out how much he spent. So he's paid £50 for the ingredients and £25 for the pitch. So he's paid 75. That's like the initial investment. If I can figure out how much he makes now, we can use the initial investment and how much he makes to find the percentage profit. So if he's making 80 brownies, 4/5 of 80, and you can use the calculator to do that, 4/5 times 80. So 64 of the brownies he sold for £2.50 each. So 64 times by £2.50. All right. 64 times by £2.50. That's going to come out at £160. And then the rest, which I guess is the 1/5 of his brownies. So again, if you're not too sure, you can just do 1/5 of 80, which would be 1/5 times 80. So 16 of the brownies. So 16 brownies times by £1 each. That's easy enough. That's £16. Right, so how much did he make? Well, he made £160 on those ones, 16 on there. I'm going to say he's made £176. So, initial investment, £75. Right, the way that I'm going to do this now is I'm going to do, I'm going to put total there for the examiner to know what's going on. And I'm going to do 176 divided by 75. Now that's going to come up on my screen as 2.34. So 176 divided by 75, initial is 2.346. Now the way that I look at that is, that would be the equivalent of 234.6%. Now if you think about how much he started with 100% and he's now got 234.6%, 0.6 recurring, should I say. So how much he's actually made? He's actually made 234.6 recurring percent. Right, number 15, the number 7.8 has been rounded to the nearest decimal place. Write down the error interval. I'm going to use X for this. Crocodile. This one should be 7.75 and 7.85. I would round 7.85 to the next value, but I would round 7.75 to 7.8, so I'd put an equal sign there. 16. Right, we've got a table here that shows the information about the time it took for a fast food order to be delivered on Saturday. State the modal interval. So we're looking for the group or the interval or the class, whatever it asks for, the most popular one, 29, 35. So I'd say this group here, that would be the most popular time period. So make sure you write that down nice and neatly. Work out the total number of deliveries on Saturday. Well, 29 between this time, 35 were in this time. This value here would be the total number of deliveries. So I'm going to do that on the calculator. 29 plus 35 plus 30. So we've got a total of 120. Okay, now for the final part, work out an estimate for the mean time it took to arrive. Now, I'm sure you've done a million of these, but we're going to use the midpoint of this group. I'm going to times it across. So I'm going to do 5 times by 29. That'll give me 145. Midpoint of this group would be 15. So 15 times by 35. 525. We will use 25 times by 26. 650. And last one, 35 times by 30. which is 1050. I now need to figure out the total time that was used in this question, so I'm just going to add these values up. 145, 25 plus 650 plus 1050. We've got a total of 2370. Now, to find the mean from pretty much any table, you will always do the total of what's going on. So 2370 divided by the amount of data in this particular question. This is people, so there were 120 people in this question. I'm going to do 2370 divided by 120 people. That's coming out at 0.75, and that is minutes. Question 17. A cylinder is placed on a table. Force exerted on the table by the cylinder is 120 newtons. The cylinder exerts a pressure of 4.52 newtons per centimetre squared on the table. Work out the volume of the cylinder. I'm going to change that formula to pressure is force over area. So the information that I have been given in this question is the force exerted, so force is 120 newtons, and the cylinder exerts a pressure, which pressure is 4.52. So I can actually find the area, which the area is the bit that's touching the table. So I would do 120 divided by 4.52, which is coming out as 120 divided by 4.52, 26.548672. Try to keep all your answers as long as you can possibly get them. Only round your final answer. I know that's not my final answer here. So this is 26.548672. That's the area that's touching this. And to work out the volume of your cylinder, you would always find the area of the cross-section and times it by the depth. Well, we just found the area of the cross-section. It's the circle on the bottom. I'm going to times it by the depth, which in this case is 40. So I'm now going to do 26.548672 multiplied by a depth of 40 centimetres. So times by 40, and that will give me 1061.94 6903. This is the point where it says give your answer correct to one decimal place. A little bit awkward with the 9, but I'm going to kind of cut it off at that point. The 4 won't change it, so it should be 1061.9 centimetres cubed as a volume. 18. Okay, I use this technique, so I'll break the x to there and the +5 over here, and then I will duplicate the x minus 7, essentially turning a double bracket question into two single brackets. X multiplied by x, it's obviously x squared, x multiplied by minus 7x. Then I'll move on to this one. 5 times by x is 5x, and 5 times by minus 7 is minus 35. My final answer should be x squared. Minus 7 and a 5 will actually land at minus 2x, and I've got a minus 35 at the end. Factorise fully. Okay, so in common, they are both in the 3 times table and they both have a y. That's the only things they have in common, so that's what's going to live on the outside of my bracket. So I'm going to put 3y, and then 3y times by something is 9y, so I'm going to put a sole 3 there, take away 4y. Number 19. It says there are 24 members of an orchestra. You've got strings, percussion, woodwind and brass. What fraction of the students play percussion? So that's 3 students, and it does say out of 24, but I would have added them up anyway to get 24. So as a fraction, that would be 3 out of 24. But you could also write 1/8. It doesn't say simplify it, but you might as well do on a calculator. So 3 out of 24, 1/8. Draw an accurate pie chart for this information. So having the total is always very useful for a pie chart. If you don't have the total, pie charts don't actually work. So we know there's 24 people in this particular question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 360, which is how many degrees are in a pie chart, divide by 24. Now that's going to be a very important number. So 360 divided by 24, that's going to give me 15. So essentially each person is worth 15 degrees. So if I've got 10 people, times by 15, I don't know why I'm writing like that, but 10 times by 15, and again I don't know why I'm using the calculator, 150, so I'm going to do that now. 3 times by 15, 45. These are going to be my degrees, you see. So 7 times by 15, that'll be 105, and 4 times by 15 should be 60. Okay, once I've got that, I will then draw my angles. I'll probably use a pencil for this bit. 150 degrees first, so that would be 150 degrees, which is here. Okay, let me just make sure that's on the screen. 150 is there. Again, I would mark that up like so. Then I would do 45 degrees, which is 45. Okay, make a little marker. Obviously, I'm going to label these as well. So I'm going to put 150 degrees in there, 45 degrees in there, 105 should be the next one. 110, 100, okay, so it should be there. 105, and hopefully you've done this right, but I should have 60 degrees there, which pretty much bob on. 60 degrees left to draw. Make sure you labelled it. So we got strings, percussion, woodwind, and we got brass. Okay, try and make it as neat as possible. That's how you get full marks on that question. Question number 20. 2 painters can paint a bedroom in 4 hours. How long would it take 5 painters to paint the same room? Give your answer in hours and minutes. Well, we know at the moment 2 painters will take 4 hours. So if only 1 painter were there, it would take longer. It would in fact take double the amount of time. So I'm going to say 1 painter would take 8 hours. So if I actually had 5 painters there, it would take less time. You'd basically share that between 5. So I'm actually going to share 8 between 5, which looks a bit weird, to be honest. 8 divided by 5. So that's how long it would take. Now, time's always an awkward question, but 8 divided by 5 is 1.6. Now, you can think of it as 1.6. I think of it as, if I press shift on here, I've got 1 3/5. Now, I know that 1 is 1 hour, but 3/5 of an hour. So I should have 1 hour, and I now need to think of what 3/5 is of an hour. So I can do a secondary question, do 3/5 of, well, an hour is 60 minutes, so 3/5 of 60, essentially. So I'm going to do 3/5 times 60, which is 36 minutes. So it should be 1 hour and 36 minutes. State one assumption you have made. This is quite a popular assumption question to do with this type of question, but the idea is that everyone is going to work at the same pace. Some people work faster, some people work slower. So for this kind of question to work, that we are assuming that everyone works at the same pace or at the same rate. Okay, we've got question number 21. Right, okay, so reflect the shape in the line x equals -1. Here's the x-axis. Where is the number -1? It is there. Therefore, that is going to be my mirror line. I know a lot of students can kind of get away with doing this without tracing paper, but I'm a big believer that if you do it with tracing paper, you can pretty much guarantee not getting it wrong. So I'm going to trace over my shape. Try and make it as neat as possible. I'm ignoring the y-axis and the x-axis. I'm only really interested in my mirror line. So if I trace over my mirror line, now I'm going to make sure I flip it into it. And then all I need to do is just line up my mirror line on top of the mirror line. And the good thing about this one is because there's pencil on the underside of this now, I can kind of get away with pushing the pencil off the other side. It's not going to be perfect, so I can just about see it. But if you can't see it, you have to just keep peeling the tracing paper up until you see it. Now I wouldn't colour this in solid, I'll just do a couple of shade lines in there. Just in case I want to go back later on and check it, make a mistake. If I've coloured it in, I have to rub the whole thing out. Right, part B, describe fully the single transformation that maps shape A onto shape B. Now that's not been enlarged, it's not been rotated, and it's not been reflected. This is the one that catches quite a few people out, but it's probably the easiest one of the lot. This is called a translation. A lot of people write transformation in this one. They're called transformations, but this one is called a translation. And in order to do that, you need to know how many squares sideways and up and down it's gone. Again, you don't need tracing paper for this one, but if you don't want to run the risk of counting them, you can always trace over it and just count. So I'm going to go sideways 1, sideways 2, down 1, 2, 3, 4. So sideways once, downwards 4. So you'd have to write it with a column vector, sideways twice, downwards 4. Okay. Number 22 says using a ruler and a compass, bisect the angle. Right, where have I put my compass? Right, so I'm going to use a compass here, and I'm going to use the technique of putting the pin on the very, very end. Open it up so it's comfortable. You can either make a mark there and make a mark there, or you can just do a nice smooth curve. Now you've technically got two new points here, that point and that point. You're going to do the same thing out over here into the middle. So I'm going to do a nice smooth curve. Do it nice and gently for now, because these are called construction lines. They don't need to be heavy, they just need to be seen. And what should happen if you've done it that technique, that should line up perfectly with the middle of your angle. Don't know why I've used pen there. I'd probably still use pencil at that point as well. Just wanted to make sure everyone could see it. Right, question 23. Work out the reciprocal of 6.4. Well, the reciprocal of a value is 1 over that value. So on my calculator, I'm going to put 1 over 6.4. Because essentially 6.4 is 6.4 over 1. So if I flip that over, I will reciprocal. And I'm going to do 1 over 6.4. And that's going to come out as 0.15625. Okay, 24. Nikolai is going on holiday to Bulgaria. The exchange rate is £1 is worth 2.32 Bulgarian leva. Nikolai changes £850 into leva. Work out how many leva he should get. Give your answer to the nearest integer. Okay, so let's think of it as this way. We've got pounds to leva. I know that £1 is worth 2.32 leva. So if I'm going to change £850, that is a pound. So I'm going to put it in the pound side. So to get to that value, I'm going to times by 850. So all I need to do on this type of question is times by 850 to the second value. So 2.32 times by 850. That is already a value, so I'm going to put 1972 leva. Okay, on his return, he's got 400 leva and he wants to change them back into pounds. It doesn't say the exchange rate has changed or anything, so I'm going to use the same exchange rate, which I'll write down here again. Pounds to leva. 1 is 2.32. However, this time we've got 400 leva, which I'm going to put over this side. Now, I don't know what that is, so I'm going to use the calculator to reverse it. I'm going to do 400 divided by 2.32. Which is going to give me a bit of a crazy number. That's fine by me, but that basically means I've times it by 172.41379. So if I do that to the same side, I would also times it by 172.41379, and essentially timesing that by 1 should give me £172.41p. And there's question 24. Done. Question 25, we've got two triangles, or a big triangle if you look at it. ABC and BCD are right angle triangles. ACD is a straight line. Work out the size of angle X. Right, what I'm going to look to do here is I'm going to actually split these into two shapes. I'm going to be looking at the left-hand triangle, which is A, B, C. We've got 17, we've got a right angle, and we've got 15. I'm actually going to use Pythagoras' theorem here to figure out the linked side. It's always useful to try and find the side that connects the two shapes, in my opinion. So I'm going to use 17 squared take away 15 squared. Should give me, let's call this one, I don't want to use X. I don't want to use A, B or C, really. I'm going to put a little a squared. So that should give me 17 squared take away 15 squared, 64. So 64 equals a squared. So a is currently 8 centimeters. So I now know that this is 8 centimeters. Okay, so if I look at the right hand side triangle, which is BDC, again a right angle, we've got no idea what this is, but we do know that's 12 centimeters, and we now know that this is 8 centimeters. This one I can't use Pythagoras on because it's got an angle involved, so I'm going to use trigonometry. The longest side, which happens to be this one, is the hypotenuse. We have got the angle, so the side opposite this is the opposite, and the one that's left is the adjacent. So in my class we use SOHCAHTOA, and we are looking for a triangle that doesn't, well, I need that value and I need that one, so I don't want the adjacent. So which one does not have adjacent? That would be SO. So to find that value, I'm going to do sine minus 1, opposite over hypotenuse, which is 8 over 12, and that should give me the answer. So inverted sine 8 over 12, which is coming out at 41.81031. Remember, just try and write every digit down you can. And now the final answer, it says give your answer to the nearest 3 significant figures, which is first, second and third. That one doesn't affect anything, so 41.8 degrees. And it was an angle. Okay, question number 26. Carlos is going to play 1 game of chess and 1 game of backgammon. The probability that Carlos will win the game of chess is 0.7, aka 70%, and the probability that Carlos will win in the game of backgammon is 0.85, 85%. Complete the probability tree diagram. So each section, so those 2 legs have to add 100%, so that one has to be 0.3 because 70% and 30%. These 2 legs also have to add to 100%, so if that's 0.85, 85, this one has to be 0.15, 15% and 85% make 100, and these 2 are same as backgammon, they are just different scenarios, so the backgammon will be 0.85 and 0.15. I'll get 2 marks just for doing that, but sometimes they do differ, so make sure you read the question. Right, work out the probability that you will lose at both chess and backgammon, which, if you think about it, that is this combination here. And when we are looking at probability tree diagrams, we're actually going to multiply these. It's like 0.3 multiplied by 0.15. Now, this is a calculator paper, so I will do on the calculator. Okay, so 0.045. It doesn't ask for anything in particular. I would write that. If it said percentage, I know that that is now 4.5%. Okay, question 27, which is the last question on my paper. We've got solve these simultaneous equations. I'm going to multiply the first equation by 2, and I'm going to end up with getting 4x, double that would give me 6y, and double that would get me 16. I'm going to keep the second equation the same. And I'm going to subtract them. So 4x take away 4x is 0x. 6y take away minus 6y take away minus y is actually 7y. And 16 take away minus 5, minus and a minus make a positive, so 16 plus 5 equals 21. So y in this should be the value 3. So you can go down to this part down here now and put y equals 3. All you need to do now is pick one of the original ones. I'm going to go with the top one just because I try and stay away from negatives and keep the numbers nice and low. So to be honest, it could work for either of them, but I'm going to use the top one anyway. I've now got 2x and 3 of those, so I'm going to put that in a bracket for the time being. So 3 of those equals 8. That was a 3. So I've now got 2x, 3 3s is 9 equals 8. Then I'm going to go into a little bit of solve. I'm going to get rid of this 9, so minus 9 minus 9. So 2x equals minus 1, and x must be equal to minus 1 over 2. So you can write minus 1 over 2, or you can write minus 0.5. I'm going to go for minus 1 over 2. And that is my paper done. How many marks did you get? Chuck it in the comments. Hopefully this comes in useful, and hopefully I've predicted some questions that you'll see on the 4th of June. Good luck and thanks for watching.